Hello and welcome to what's going to be my last video for the beginner's guide for Dissidia Opera Omnia. This has been a long time coming. World of Illusion, Divine Summons and Summons. I already talked about this part. Well, now it's time to talk about this part. So after you bring your summons up to level 20, you will have the World of Illusion Ultima unlocked for the respective summon. You have to do this for all of the summons, so you have to go here and unlock level 20 for all of the summons. There is, however, one thing that I didn't talk about, which is here, this part. So I'm gonna quickly mention it. There is something else that you can do with this SP, because eventually you will have maxed out all of your summon boards and eventually this SP will become irrelevant. Like, it's not irrelevant right now, but you can actually come here to the Radiant Artifacts. Well, first you're gonna have to clear this one and this one. These two missions not relevant. Clear them after you've done anything else but that. Like everything else in this world. So it does cost you 40 SP. Let's just go here once so that I can show you what actually is over here. What you actually get from here. Yeah, I got Galusodi and I maxed them out. Armor and everything. Not everything. What didn't I max out? I have a couple of things from him that I didn't max out in. Bart has been an absolute D-bag. I swear. He's given me more ODs than anybody else in this world, but nothing in terms of 15 and 35. He is currently on my shit list. You are, Bart. You are. Legitimately. A D-bag right about now, both you and Penelope. Alright. So I haven't, because I don't have enough stuff to mess. So what you get from here is these artifacts. These golden artifacts you can use to exchange for their artifacts. Ooh. In this item exchange menu. Right over here you will have missions for every you will have missions for every event that comes up. So for example, as you can see, there's here mission left 4 days, 9 days, 9 days, 9 days, and then you have 11 days here and mission complete. Well, you don't care much about the mission complete, but for every event you will get a mission to get their artifact, to exchange for their artifact. The way you do this is by getting these medals by going in the World of Illusions here. So you would, for example, exchange for this one. Alright, and now we would get here in the missions. Get here in events and we would have this one. Every event has artifact missions for the characters involved, so you have to go and exchange for these artifacts for the yellow ones, not the white ones. So all of these artifact missions are for the yellow ones, and you can clear these and you will get some extra gems. You have to come here in order to farm for those. Can't farm from anywhere else. And you need basically 10, so go in here once will get you one of those. And for example, I still have, I think, 4 left, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, which I have active missions left. I have about 9 and 11 days to get them, so I'm not in a hurry. Basically my main priority is still summon boards. but these should also be something that you are looking at. Just make sure that when you come here to the artifact tab, if there is something here with mission left, that means that you can get 200 gems by exchanging for one of these, and you do that by going here. And now that we are done with the easy part, let's get into the hard part, okay? Summonboards. Summonboards. Ultimate. God, I hate this. It took me a whole day to max out 10 Summonboards for 3 characters who are boosted. That is... Holy mother of God. I had forgotten why I hated this so much. Well, absolutely despicable. In the Ultima world, you will first pop up, the first place that you will pop up is actually here. Then you will get this mission afterwards. So you have to basically do these in order. First this one, then this one, then this one. And then after you clear this one will pop. And there will be a lock here until you get your summon to 25 or 30. I don't remember exactly when these 2 stages unlock. But this is the stage where you have the summon here, where you want to actually farm for your summon boards. Now there is a difference between characters who have 2x times the XP and characters who don't. Usually everybody will get boosted stats here, so you will do more damage and stuff. So usually in the world of illusions everybody has boosted stats, which means that they will do more damage. And 2 times characters will get 2 times the rewards for summon boards. So they will get 2 times the points. Your regular characters will get regular points. So I'm very confident that this team is going to not need much of anything. I'm just going to run through Ifrit in order to show you what kind of an asshole he is. So Ifrit will blast you in the face. That is what he does. If you bring here characters who don't have any kind of armor, he will one-shot them. 100%. Okay? Like, that is gonna happen. 100% he will one-shot them. I can tell you this from personal experience. Because he hits for a lot of damage. Now Lightning's gonna waste a bunch of turns because that's what she's good for when she's not a farming unit. Unfortunately, you're going to have to eventually do something to farm with this girl. I mean, you're going to have to do her summon boards eventually. Luckily, Ifrit is just 1 unit. Yeah, so Ifrit is not very complicated. You can auto-duel Ifrit. In fact, I auto-dueled my way through all of my summon board farming. The problem is, so Lightning and Cloud already had a couple of points, but Galuf went from 0 to 342. Cloud just got 171 points, and Lightning just got 171 points. So you get summon boards here in the training boards. Per each character will have the boards over here. So they have their character boards, then they have the summon boards, and for example here in the summon boards you can use the auto button in order to open up all of these. It takes you 6,500 points in order to unlock all of these squares. The wild points that you get can be used on anybody. The wild points you will get automatically while doing summon board farming, the number of points. So for example, if you want to transfer the wild points to Galoof, just click this plus button auto and he will get the number of wild points. I'm not going to transfer the wild points because I can farm them easily for him. Is there a point where Shiva has a lot of points? Okay, so I can show you. Most people don't actually farm. So how much would I need? I need about... yeah, that's about as much. Most people don't actually farm for everyone. For characters that they don't plan on using, they don't actually farm all of the 6,500 points. They farm only 1,800 points. The reason for that is because summon boards have these little nuggets over here, places, which if you click on auto, it will automatically go through the treasure nodes. These little yellow things are called treasure nodes. This was implemented because even before, when we didn't have this auto duel feature, everybody would just try and find the easiest way to the treasure nodes because these actually have goodies inside of them. So for example, if I unlock this for lightning, it will give me the abilities that I have, so the ability passives, and also these. The treasure nodes have inside of them 3 tickets, 5 high armor tokens, and 300 gems. And this is available for all characters, so I think this times 10 for every character, and then times all of the characters that you have. So these are a lot of resources. You have a lot of tickets, you have a lot of these high guard armors that you can use in order to enhance your characters, buy all of their armor and stuff, and you get a lot of gems from this. So this for a long time was our biggest source of resources, let's say, because we got absolutely everything that we needed in order to enhance characters or summon and get new gear, banners. So summon boards are actually your best source of income or resources, especially for a new player, because you just get these for free, and it's 1,800 in order to unlock all of these nodes for every summon board. So for every summon, you need 1,800 for the corresponding summon, and you can just unlock these treasure nodes for characters that you're not using. That's usually what most people do because they just want the rewards, they want the tickets, they want the gems to summon on the banners that they're actually interested in, and they don't want to build a full character for that. Now, I would recommend that you eventually build all of the characters in case somebody gets something good and then you all have them all set up with all of their summon boards so that they can do massive amounts of damage. I think you saw just how much damage Bartz and Galoof were churning out compared to Lightning, who has only one board. Summon boards make such a difference because you get all of these points, all of these, for free. You don't need CB to equip this. It's quite literally for free. You just equip these. That's crazy. That's a lot. It's 10 summon boards with so much stats. That's where all of your damage is coming from. This thing just makes your damage skyrocket like crazy. And each summon board, aside from these treasure nodes, right, which you need 1,800 points to get. Now you need actually 5,000 points to unlock all of these. The rest of 1,500 from that 6,500 that I said are used for these. And these are abilities. Each summon will give your character free these free abilities that you can equip on them. It sounds so weird to say that because it sounds like I'm saying that it's for free, but it's actually not. It costs 2 CP to equip each one of these abilities, but it's free of them. Goodness. Okay, so every summon has abilities, and you can actually choose, will allow a character to equip 3 of these abilities, and from these abilities you actually get a lot of options, let's say, but most of them are bad. Not necessary. So you actually have a limited number of choices for most of them. It's like for almost all of the summons you know which ones you should equip. So for example, each summon will have this fire resistance up for whatever element it represents. That will be the first ability that you can unlock for each summon. Never go for this. So this one will just reduce the amount of damage that you take from that element. It's never worth it because more often than not you want to kill the enemy faster, and if you can kill the enemy faster you're not gonna take damage, so never worth it. This one is for the whole party, that one was individual. So for example, Ifrit has for fire, Shiva will have for ice, Ramuh will have for thunder, so on and so forth. Everybody has for all of their elements. Bahamut I believe has for magic, and Odin has for physical attacks. But this just reduces the damage that you take, then the damage that your party takes. And then you have the first good ability, which is firepower up. So it will this is also something that every summon has. The first ability is usually increase in damage to the element that they're affiliated with. So for example, for Ifrit, he will grant people who have fire damage 10% extra attack, 10% extra bravery damage dealt with these kinds of attacks, so more damage basically. This is good on whoever is a fire elemental user. So for example, Ignis has fire, Emperor, and enchant. Papalimo has fire and ice, so Papalimo would want this one, and Shiva's equivalent to this one. And Van has a lot of elements. Van has wind, fire, ice, and holy, if I'm not mistaken. He has those. Wait a second, does he have wind? I don't remember if he has wind. Between wind and ice, he doesn't have one of those elements. I don't remember which one it is off the top of my head, but Van wants a lot of elements. There's a lot of people associated with elements. Rydia has water, and so on and so forth. So for all of those individuals who do damage, like Bart has wind for example, you want their third ability. The third ability for the summon. Lightning for example has lightning, so she would want Ramuh's third ability. When you get to Ramuh, for lightning you want this thunder power up, this ability right over here, because it will give her more damage with her thunder attacks, and her EX is thunder, her skill 1 I believe is thunder, and she also imperils and enchants herself with thunder through the LD if I'm not mistaken. So she wants this. All of anybody who is associated with an element, Raijin, who is also a thunder element, wants this ability. So aside from that, every summon will have these three, only associated with each of their elements. So the resistance to fire damage for you individually, the resistance to the party, and then the damage up for the element that they represent. And you want to get this ability for whoever has the damage of that corresponding ability. So for lightning this would be useless because she has no fire damage. Afterwards the summons become a little bit specialized. Let's say there's summons who prefer that you be at a certain HP. Usually HP is something that every summon has at one point in time, so they prefer, Ifrit for example prefers that you be over 80% HP in order for his passives to kick into effect. Here's what I mean. Raises attack by 10% while HP is at least 80% of max, so at least, so 80% or higher. There are summons who prefer 80% or lower, and so on and so forth. Ifrit prefers that you are as close to max HP as possible, or at the very least at 80%. And then he'll raise your attack by 10%. Now this is great for any damage dealer. You usually want to be at very high HP, unless you're Arden or Galoof. And you want to hit for for a lot of damage, so this is great on anybody. I would recommend that you have this on anybody except for Arden. But even Arden, I mean, he's not always at 0 HP, so depending on the team composition, so quite frankly even Arden wants this. So this would be the first ability that I recommend you get from Ifrit if your damage dealer doesn't have firepower. Otherwise it's this one. This would be the second one that everybody gets. A base attack up, it will raise your initial and your attack. Again, if your HP is 80% of max, at least 80% of max. So this one again raises your damage as well as your initial. You have this terrible thing, don't get it. Just don't. I've never understood. I've never seen a place where break bonus is a thing. I don't know. They tried to introduce something in JP. I still haven't seen it be any way useful in any shape or form. It's just bad. And then the last one, which will raise the critical hits that you do. Now, critical hits you usually get automatically if you attack a broken target. So this is very easy to proc. So everybody, usually for Ifrit, everybody gets the critical hit, attack or attack and then alternating between these two depending on whether you're doing fire damage. If you're doing fire damage, you want firepower up. If you're not doing fire damage, you want this one. So that would be the abilities for Ifrit. Then we have Shiva. Shiva has blizzard resistant. Again, these three are basically the same as Ifrit, only for her element. So if you have an ice damage dealer, this is the first ability that you want, blizzard power up. Then Shiva has evasion up, and Shiva is one of those people who wants your HP to be less than 80% of max, so the opposite of Ifrit. Ifrit wants you to be 80% or higher, Shiva wants you to be less than. So it's not, if you don't think that there's a sweet spot somewhere where you can be at 80% and you get everything, no. It wants you specifically to be less than if it wants 80% or higher. Either way, this will raise your evasion rate, so you will have a chance to dodge that attack. It almost never procs, but sometimes it does. It's useful. It's useful, especially if you're at low HP, so usually this is the first ability that most people look at. Base guard up will raise your initial and defense, which is great, especially if you're at low HP. So this would be the second ability. She also has that stupid break bonus that Ifrit has. Don't get this. The next one is critical power up. So basically the abilities for Shiva are critical power, evasion, and depending on whether you have ice, one of these two, depending on whether you have an ice magic, an ice damage dealer, or if you don't have an ice damage dealer. Then we have Ramuh. Come on, Ramuh. So Ramuh is the thunder element, so these three are for thunder element. So for example, lightning would want this because she's a thunder element. He is the opposite of Shiva in the way that he wants your HP to be at least 80%. And he will raise the evasion rate if your HP is at least 80%. So for example, Shiva and Ramuh complement each other on this evasion rate because you have 10% chance to dodge, and different of where your HP is if you have Shiva and Ramuh's evasions both equipped. So you will see a lot of abilities that complement each other, basically like the way Shiva and Ramuh's evasions do. For example, this one, base guard up, is exactly the same as Shiva's, only for the HP percent higher. So you get initial 10% and defense 20% while HP is at least 80%, and for Shiva you basically got that while HP was below. So if we go back here, you'll see that it's if it's less than 80%. So basically something that makes your stats kind of sort of be the same and different of what your HP threshold is. So base guard up, then we have the chain bravery damage up, which is not, this is chain is basically what they refer to launching. Like they don't have a consistent way of saying we launch an enemy. It's either chain, it's launch, it's chase. There's 3 ways of saying the same thing, which is actually pretty annoying. But chain HP damage, the chain is the sequence that your characters do during a launch sequence. It's called the chain. Either way, this one is not very useful because more often than not during a launch you want to HP attack, so you're almost never gonna bravery attack especially not with the units that are currently just giving you brave left and right. You will have brave to expend during a chase sequence more often than not, so this is basically useless and nobody gets this. So the one that we do is the one that everybody gets is this one. Reduces bravery damage taken by 5% while HP at least 80%. So it's basically a damage reduction all around. So this one and this one is what people usually get, the reducing the amount of HP damage that you get and the evasion, and depending on whether you have a thunder character. So for lightning I would get this one. If it was for anyone else that doesn't use a thunder element, I would get this one. Let's move on to Pandemonium, because it's what he's over here. He's not... It's probably brothers on your screen, but Pandemonium is here. So let's talk about Pandemonium. He's the wind element. So for example, bards would want this with the wind power up, wind damage up. Pandemonium also has an attack up. He's also one of those summons that prefers that your HP be less than 80% of max. So he's kind of the equivalent of Ifrit. You remember how Ifrit raised your attack by 10% if your HP was above 80%? Well, Pandemonium does that when your HP is below 80%. So that's the equivalent to Ifrit's ability. Then you have raising your max bravery and defense while HP is less than 80%. There is an equivalent to this. I believe Diabolos has the equivalent for the higher, if I'm not mistaken, or somebody else. And then Pandemonium is usually the summon that's associated with chase. His ability as a summon is to raise the amount of damage that you do during chase sequence, so during launches. So that's the reason why you would want to get this ability, because this will further raise your HP damage out during chase. So not only is Pandemonium raising it by himself by just being there as your summon, this ability also increases it again. So it's a way of stacking chase damage. Also, Bahamut has a similar ability. We'll talk when we get to him. So you can increase the amount of chase damage that you are doing by quite a lot, actually. So for Pandemonium, if you have this, if you have a wind character, you want this. If you don't have a wind character, you want this. And then the other two abilities that you should get is these two. These two guarantee, depending on whether you have a wind character or not, between these two. Okay, Diabolos is here, apparently. Okay, so let's do Diabolos next. So Diabolos is the equivalent for dark. So these are dark element associated. So if you have a dark character like Zandy or Gomez, or what was his name? Dark Knight Cecil. And another one, I forgot. You want this, dark damage up. If you don't have a dark elemental character, you want the boost guard up. And Diabolos is actually a little bit different, because his damage, the stat increase that he gives you will be permanent. They're not condition based. So for example, Ifrit will only raise your attack if your HP is 80% or higher. If you're Odin and you prefer to be at low HP throughout most of the fight, Ifrit will never proc for you. But Diabolos, for example, will proc if your HP falls below 60% at least once. So for example, if you take a big AoE HP attack from the boss, this ability will proc. But if you heal it up, if you heal yourself back up to full, this ability will still be active because it needs to fall at least once. But Ifrit doesn't work like that. Neither does Shiva. Shiva will not give you your stats if you're at max HP. She wants you to be at 80% or lower HP, for example. Diabolos is a little bit different, so is Odin, by the way. Odin and Diabolos both have this nice quirk behind them that they care. It is conditional, so your HP has to fall below 60%, otherwise you're not proccing this at all. But you can, in a sense, have their status up to you for your character if you ever proc it at the very least once. And that's great because this one is also great. It raises your attack by 5% if HP falls below 60% at least once. So this attack increase you will get if your HP falls even once below, so you just need to let the enemy attack you once or something, and then you will have this for the rest of the fight. So Diabolos actually has some pretty good stuff. He has the Greater Bravery Rejuvenation. Now this is pretty good for people who actually like to give brave, but it's also good for your characters who are getting brave from other people. So let's say Bart and Penelo, for example, who like to just gain a lot of bravery and give a lot of bravery to the rest of the party. So Bart has a lot of skills that will battery the rest of the party. This will help him battery more, and it will also help your characters receive more. So this is a very good skill, and I would recommend that you have it on all of your characters. This one is okay, but it's not as important, quite frankly. At the very least, not in my personal opinion. These are the two skills that you should have on all characters for him, and then between this, depending on whether you have dark damage or not. So Dark Knight Assassin will have this, Lightning will get this, for example. Okay, so that was Diabolos. Then we have Brothers over here. Brothers is the equivalent to earth damage, so you have earth resistance up for you and for the party, then you have earth damage up. So for example, characters like Ishtola who have earth, characters like Guy who also has earth damage, they want this. Then we have the boost up, which is max bravery. He is also conditional and very strict, so while HP is at least 60%, so it's lower than Ifrit's, it's not 80%. But it needs to be 60% at the very least, otherwise this is not proccing for you. He will raise your max bravery, and that's pretty good. Your two biggest defensive stats are attack and max bravery, so if you can increase this by any means at all, it's a good thing. This one increases max bravery, it's very good. This one also increases max bravery and defense, again conditional if HP is 60% or max. And then this one, this is I like this ability a lot, but I don't know how many other people like this ability. I usually put this ability on most of my characters, but here you can be a little bit like, you can experiment a little bit on what you like, because this one will give you HP recovery effect by 5% if bravery at least 50% of max. Now with characters like Bart's, this is pretty easy to trigger, and more often than not the current meta actually helps this ability a lot. Previously at the start of Chaos and Cosmos, this ability was pretty useless, quite frankly, because you would almost never proc it, because you have to be at least 50% of max bravery, which was actually pretty hard to do when we didn't have so many battery units on our side, like Aerith, like Bart, like Penelo, who can give and make sure that the party is actually at 50% of max. So this will raise your HP recovery, which is how you see all of those massive HP recovery effects. It's a lot. 5% is quite well, it depends on, I don't know, it depends, but it depends actually on what 5% is, because for example for Penelo it doesn't do that much for her recovery effects, because it's not much. But in Burst Heals, Paladin, Susso, Aerith, who have those massive HP recoveries, 5% of that is a lot. It equals to a lot. And those two are very battery heavy units, so you are very likely to trigger this ability. So it really depends on the unit, but for the current meta I would say that this ability procs more often than it doesn't, And if you're in a fight where you really need a lot of healing, this is very good. But it really depends. I personally enjoy this ability. I can make a lot of arguments for this one as well. Like reducing the HP damage that you take is very useful. So it really depends here on how you want to play. In my personal opinion, Brothers is a very good summon board passive in my personal opinion. And I would choose between one of these two. This one is obviously the one that you want to have on all of your characters. The boost to no, this one. This is the one that you want to have on most of your characters. And depending on, yeah, I would say these two are the ones that you want to have on most of your characters, because those raise your offensive stats. And whether it's a stone, if it's a, if your character has earth element, you want to have this. If not, choose between these two. It's literally a choice. It's whatever you prefer. I prefer this one, but this one's very good as well. So if you prefer to take less HP damage so that you have to heal less, to me they're equivalent, because it's the same condition. I prefer this one, but you can choose whichever one you want. I don't think this one is a bad choice. I think this one's a very good choice as well. Yeah, so then we come to Leviathan. Leviathan is the water element, so he has water resistance for you and for the party, and of course water power up. This is actually a pretty sad state of affairs, I would say, because we have Rydia, Garnet, and I don't even remember if we have any more water Impero enchanters. They're both Impero enchant, but I don't remember if we have any more other water units. Oh yeah, the Mugo just came out with water, but water was a pretty sad element, let's say. So for any water units, you want this, because it'll raise their water damage. Otherwise, Leviathan has okay-ish attacks. This one raises your max bravery by 10% if HP. So Leviathan is a weird one. Why? Because he wants your HP to be less than 80% of max, and then he has this life ability which increases your max HP by 10%. So it's a little bit harder to get to those percentages if you have Leviathan, because he raises your HP. And it's like, what the why, brah? Why do you want me to have less HP? Makes no sense in my personal opinion, because he just outright raises your maximum HP, and most people just have this ability. I would recommend this for everybody. This is how you get a lot of HP on all of your tanks, for example. So they can have a high pool of HP, and I don't know, I've seen people get a ridiculous like 60,000 HP, which is crazy, you might think in the beginning, but it's not that crazy. Once you see some of their ridiculous abilities and artifacts and what some tanks can do, like it gets to crazy levels, man. So yeah, getting to 60 to 80% or below in order to equip this, it becomes a little bit harder with Leviathan skills, so I don't understand why he's 80%, he's less than 80%, that makes no sense to me. But yeah, this is the ability that I would get for boost up, and or not really, no, I would get the attack one, quite frankly. I would prioritize the attack, the life, and then depending on whether you have a water element, or if you have a water elemental, choose the water. If not, choose this one. The resistance one is fine, but quite frankly, more often than not, you're probably not gonna take bravery damage, especially with all of the launch compositions, with all of the delays. Nobody wants bosses to take a turn anyway. A little bit less relevant that you take less bravery damage. Now let's talk about Alexander. Was anybody else here that I missed? No. Okay. Let's talk about Alexander. So Alexander is the light elemental, so he has resistance to light for you and for the party. Then you have this one, damage down. So you want this for Paladin Sasso, for his son, for I forgot other light units right now, but for units who can do light damage. Then you have this boost which raises your max bravery, and Alexander is also one of those who has at least once. So if your HP ever falls below 60%, you will get your max bravery increase for the rest of the fight, which is really good. So I would recommend this one because, again, max bravery and attack, that's what you want. And again, you want attack. So this is also the second one that you would want. Target power is actually very bad even for tanks. Like, I swear. You don't want this. Why don't you want this? Because essentially the way higher difficulties work right now is the bosses remove their most of their debuffs. And being targeted is essentially a debuff. Target lock is a debuff. So because the bosses cleanse so much, being targeted is completely irrelevant right about now. Just as it always was, quite frankly. And this one is just a better ability. This is again one of those abilities that it's an ability that keeps, let's say, consistent the HP healing that you have. So you had I don't remember which one it was. It had the equivalent to this. Let me go and search real quick. It wasn't Panda, it was Brothers, wasn't it? Yeah, this one. So it's the equivalent to this one, because this one raises your HP recovery effects by 5% if bravery is at least 50% of max. The other one raises it when it's lower than 50%. So you will continuously have your HP recovery effects will basically be the same, indifferent of the amount of bravery that you have if you have both of these abilities. So I usually prefer to get this as well as these two, and if you have a light elemental, I would just get these free abilities and not bother with the HP recovery one. But you can also exchange the HP recovery one for, I don't know, the boost one. Yeah, but this one's pretty good. No, I don't think it's worth it. I think you're better off going full on offense, quite frankly, with Alexander. Now Odin is Odin reduces physical damage. He's the physical summon. He reduces physical damage for you, for the party, and physical damage up. Which is stupid because, let's say, lightning can benefit from this, from the 10% physical damage up from this, and from the 10% physical damage up from Ramuh, which is crazy. 10% to lightning damage up from Ramuh, which is crazy. Thunder damage or whatever. So Odin really increased the amount of power that one can get, because you were essentially allowed to stack a lot more on top of Odin and Bahamut. They were both exceptional when they came out, because these abilities allowed you to stack the amount of damage to make it higher than it was previously. And I believe this one is just an outright increase. Yeah, this one doesn't care about the amount of HP that you have, so you will always have this on for physical damage dealers. So for magic units, you don't want this. You're gonna want this. Wow, it's still at least 60% of max. That is so nasty. Okay, especially considering Odin's ability, I'm actually surprised. So Odin and Leviathan are completely reversed. Because Odin raises your attack by quite a significant amount if you are below 60%, and here he wants you to be a 60% of max, at least 60%. So that's crazy. I don't understand this. But either way, this will raise your attack by quite a lot. It's pretty good. Now, between these two, I was always a little bit conflicted which one is better. I believe that units who need to have this initial bravery, who rely on initial bravery, so for example your Penellos, who rely a lot on initial bravery, your Arits and stuff like that, whoever doesn't Whoever's ability relies on initial bravery rather than on attack would probably prefer this, because it increases the stat that they use. So for example, Penelo gets a lot of all of her battery comes from her initial, not from her attack. So she would benefit a lot more from this in order to battery more, because the more battery you have, the more bravery damage you're gonna be doing, the more HP damage you're gonna be doing. So it's better for some units, this one's better for some units. For other units, this one's the better choice between these two. I would alternate and see which one I prefer. Now this one is just as useless as Alexander's ability with target lock, because it's not reliable to proc, just as the target lock is not reliable anymore to proc. Target lock is actually a little bit more reliable because you can get the enemy to at the very least focus on you before they cleanse, but this one, like, you just have to be very lucky or constantly have a tank in your party that draws the enemy's attention away from you. So quite frankly, this is one of the most useless abilities in the whole game. I would never get that. This one's actually pretty good, because this one, again, it's a bravery gain. So units like Bart, units like Penelo will give a lot more bravery, will gain a lot more bravery. Lightning also has bravery gains. Everybody to some extent has bravery gains on their abilities. Their HP attack plus will gain a lot more bravery. Those HP attack pluses that you get, the regular HP attack will just expand the amount of bravery that you have. But the HP attack plus that most characters get, they will gain bravery. So everybody and their mama benefits from this. Okay, this is one of the most useful abilities in the game. So, and it does not have an HP requirement whatsoever, so you will constantly have this on. So this one's very good. This one, depending on what you want, and again, this one depending on who you are. So if you're dealing with a magic unit, you want these two and this one. If you're dealing with a physical damage dealer, you want this one. Don't ignore it, it's a very good ability, okay? And then depending on what kind of unit you want, you either want these two or this one. But if it's a physical, you want this one for sure. So these two abilities in a little bit like up in the air. Which one's better for which? Again, like for example, Penelo would want this one and this one. Bart would want these. Maybe no, Bart goes on attack, so I think these two. Yeah, those two and this one. So it really depends. Lightning would want physical attack, it would want these two and this one. So it really depends on the unit. You have to read their skills a little bit and think a little bit about what would work best on which unit. And then we have Bahamut, who is the equivalent to Odin only for magic units. So he has magic resistance up and magic resistance to all, and then you have magic up, which is great. Every magic unit wants to have this. Don't even joke about it, like give this to a magic unit. And by the way, you will have units like Vayne, like Setzer, like Penelo, who have both magic and physical attacks, at which point you want to have the big one for both. So you want this one for Vayne, but you also want this one, right? Because his EX does magic damage, but his regular skills are physical, and you want the big boost for both of them. So for units that have both physical and magic, you want both of the big ones. But if you, let's say you have a pure magic damage dealer like Garnet, you want this one, but you don't want the Odin one. So it really depends. Look on your skills, look at your skills and see whether your unit is purely physical or not. And by the way, when it says physical, it doesn't mean, let's say for example, Lightning is physical and a unit like Fran, for example, is an archer, or Trey, who is more recent. He's an archer. He has ranged attack. Range falls into the category of physical, so you still want to get the physical ability. There is no other summon that raises just range attacks. It's all physical, so you want to get the physical one for Odin. And then you have magic from Bahamut, and this is where you would raise for magic damage dealers. You want this. This one's also very good, but Bahamut is also one of those units who wants you to be above 80%, and this will raise your bravery damage, your max bravery by 10%, which is a lot. You want this on all of your units, like even Arden. Even Arden. You want this on him. Boost guard up will raise max bravery and defense. I would not necessarily focus on this. This is mostly like the ability that you would get instead of this one. If you're dealing with a physical damage dealer, you would want this one. Or and this is an or, it really, because between these two, I would say it really depends on what you prefer. Do you want to have max bravery and defense, or do you want to have more HP? Now, this is the argument that I'm gonna make. I never go for this one, and here's why. It's just because of the fact that this gives max bravery. You might not think that it's a lot, but between defense and HP, they both raise your defensive stats in a way. So this will raise your defensive stats, even if it's raising the defense, not the HP per se. But this is also raising the max bravery, which is good for your offensive capabilities, whereas the other one is only raising your defensive capabilities, which is why I always advocate for this one and not for the HP. Because you're already raising your... You don't need that much HP, okay? Trust you me, I've seen Lufenia Plus. You don't need this. This is too much HP. And the other one's also raising your offensive stats by raising your max bravery. So I would personally go for this, but it is down to personal preference. If you want your tank to have 60,000 HP because you just want to stare at that tank and make him more immortal than he already is, go for this. Like, nobody's stopping you. So between these two, it really is personal preference. I prefer this one because it also raises the offensive stats, but it is personal preference. This one, however, is not personal preference. This one is the one that will raise your attack during chase sequences. I recommend that you have this on everybody. It's this one that you want to have on everybody, and then depending on whether it's a magic unit, you want this. If it's not a magic unit, choose between these two for Bahamut. And I believe that was it, right? So I covered everybody. I covered Bahamut, Odin, Alexander, Leviathan brothers, Panda, Diabolos, Ramuh, Shiva, Ifrit. Did I forget anybody? No, I got everybody. Okay. And once you have all of your summon boards, because we are not done. In case you thought we were done, we are not done. Once you have all of your summon boards and you've raised all of their... and you raised your summon to level 30, some of these, because this is the new trend of summon board enhancements or summon enhancements that are coming our way, and that is the divine world of illusions. This is an enhancement just for your summon, so it's not for your characters. And your summon needs to be at level 30. The reason why Diabolos is not unlocked is because I don't have him at level 30, because my gold can't take him to level 30, because I had to focus on some farming. So I decided to forgo my gold farming in order to get all of the in order to fully max out characters, because before we talk about those, I want to just show you the difference. So these are Bart's total stats, right? But if you click on this, it will show you that these are his base. This is the base that he is working with. This is what the gear gives him. So these the gear that he currently has. Affinity, so all of the passives, by passives I mean equip the passives, all of these defense, blah blah blah, affinity abilities, right? So affinity from other gear, so this would be his second armor, but he also has an affinity from his first armor, and so on and so forth. So the affinity abilities, and these are the passives. This is what you get from summon boards. That's a lot of HP, a lot of max bravery, a lot of attack, defense. All of these you get from summon board passives. This is basically a maxed out character. Well, admittedly it would be a little bit higher with this. Okay, it would be higher if I got his last, but he's almost maxed out. And I'm saying but this is max summon boards, the max summon boards. That's how much you get extra, and it is not little. Okay, it is a lot. It helps a lot, and it helps to increase his damage by quite a lot. Like you were saying, can do 999. If you have only this purple armor over here, and you don't get the second tier which you get from clearing Lufinia stages, he will be capped out at 99,999 and at HP damage, and at 9,999 brave damage. He can reach that cap with summon board passives. He can't reach it on his own. He needs those summon board passives. Like my Bart was hitting 7,000, let's say, before summon board passives. With summon board passives, he's hitting cap. That's the difference. It's a huge increase in damage. You might not think that it's much, but it is, and it makes a difference. And obviously throughout the course of the fight, it will obviously make a difference if your character is hitting cap or not. So do your summon boards. Do your summon boards. That's how you get your characters to hit ridiculous numbers. Alright, so let's go back and talk about the Divine World of Illusions. Once you get your summon... Oh, by the way, this is where you get the magic pot. In case you were wondering, it's a time limited event. It's not always here. This is limited to, I don't know, at one point in time this was almost always here, but it's not always here. It's usually an event thing, depending on, I don't know, whatever event is going on, but it will come back. It always comes back. So the Divine World of Illusions is the next increase to the summons. You will see some players in multiplayer, you will see some people who have their summons at level 40. Now they only have Alexander, Ramuh, and the Diabolos at level 40. These are the only summons that we have gotten up into as of the day that I'm making this video. Eventually all of the summons will get their level 40, but in essence what a world of Divine World of Illusion looks like, it actually looks very similar to a World of Illusions. Like, let's be honest, the stages are pretty similar. The farming methods, however, are not. The farming methods are well, actually I do believe that the farming methods are a little bit similar-ish of sorts. Let me see. Actually, let me see if boosted characters are still a thing here. So Hope was boosted and I don't think I saw him being boosted. Hope? Where you at, buddy? No. Okay. So it's no longer a thing. Alright. Which means that it doesn't matter who you bring at this point. But the quest is level 150. I don't want lightning, but this is Alexander. Alexander does not even care. But lightning is just gonna get herself killed. Yeah, I'm better off bringing Penelo just because she got all of those board passives. So this one also costs 50. My god, and how many points do we get for this? That's gonna be brutal. I think I can auto this from what I remember. I think you can auto, because in case you thought that farming 10 summon boards was crazy for every character in the game, well, this one at the very least you need to farm it only once. But it's still a lot and it's still crazy. Yeah, so Alexander has something called fixed turns. You can't actually do anything against this. You can't delay him by any means whatsoever. You can't yeah, that was not cool. I wanted to, because he doesn't have his passives. It's basically just like Summonboard Farming, only this stage is 180. Oh yeah, and he gets a shield. Isn't that amazing? And then he gets another shield. Alright, I don't have her yet. I forgot. I ain't got her yet. Go, Mart. What are you doing, man? Wow, goodness, that is intimidating. 80,000 brave. 85. That will one-shot your party if it hits. I am not even joking. That will one-shot most people if it hits. Unless you're Bosch or Arden or... Unfortunately for you, you're dealing with Barts. That's not intimidating. Alexander is probably the worst one that I can show you because, well, but then again, I don't have Ramza, so it wouldn't have even been that easy for me to show you Diabolos either, so it's gonna take you a while. And that is very scary, something of that magnitude hitting anyone is absolutely ridiculous. And it is not gonna be pretty. We're gonna take a lot of HP damage here. Now, unfortunately for this man, healing is on point with this team, and you're gonna get double countered. Ah no, just one counter because Galuf's other counter is tied to physical attacks. Now here, oh, did you see the amount of HP damage that we healed for Bards? That was... I don't remember if it's... which one was it? I think it was Brothers. That's Brothers. Doing a lot. Look at Galuf, oh my god. He doesn't... yeah, he's healing... He's healing for a crazy amount. Actually, more a combination between Galuf, Pomelo. But yeah, Pomelo is healing a lot less. Yeah, this is not nice. This is not a nice stage. And these are technically speaking maxed out characters. But for every divine summon you have to do this stage quite a lot of times in order to get points. These points. Oh my god. 285? Oof. Yeah. So yeah, if we had boosted characters in our party, which we unfortunately don't because Hope was boosted here, so Hope is no longer boosted anyway. We would have been able to get 4 times that, but if we had 3 boosted characters. And the only thing that you want to do during Divine Summon is to come here with boosted characters if the event is live. If the event is not live, it really doesn't matter who you bring here so long as they survive and they can preferably auto this. but it is a pretty complicated fight. Like for example, you would want an insta-break unit with Alexander like Bart in order to make sure that he doesn't kill you, because you saw how hard he's brave, how much he's brave just skyrocketed. And basically what you want with these divine points is to go back to the enhancement point. That's the stage you want to farm. Just like with the points, you want to farm the stage where the summon is present. You will see here illusion board. So it's not on the bind and enhance, it's on the illusion board. And this is where you will be able to actually raise their level. Here in the illusion board, and it will tell you what rewards you get for completing this. So you have the possibility, if you take this to level 30, and that is, it's a little bit complicated to see in the beginning because you see 50 over here. Well, what this represents is all of these little boxes over here. So you have per level 50 nods that you want to unlock. For each of these nods you need 150 points, right? So if I auto this, I will only get one. With 285, so that is, oh my god, that is so much. You can make the calculations yourself. You have 50 nods. For each nod you need 150 points. 50 times 150 times 30. That's about as much as you need in order to fully max out and get all of these rewards. All of these rewards. So this is the maximum number of rewards, right? You can get 100 of these nuggets, 100 of these nuggets, 400 tickets, and 40,000 gems, as well as this is the next tier material that will allow you to take Alexander to level 31 and above, up until level 40. So this is all of the rewards that you will get when you reach level 30, right? But it's actually level 15 if I remember for these, so you don't have to take Alexander to level 30 if you're only interested in these. But I don't remember if these were also at level 15. I don't remember if these were maxed out at level 15 either. But from level 15 and above you get mostly these materia. Whereas here you will get a couple of them. But here is another way. So through divine summons, it's another way for you to gain these nuggets and ingots, and you can basically use this to get 5 ingots of each variety. So that's about 2.5 characters that you can max out with the divine summon board. Not that much. We have better places. As a new player you have better places, so this, I would not recommend that this would be your first source of ingots. As a new player you have so many more options that don't require you losing your goddamn mind with that 150 stage. I'm serious. As a new player you have much better options if you're interested in ingots. And if you're interested in gems and tickets, you should do your Summonboard farming, not your divine Summonboard farming for those, because for gems and tickets you get a lot of them from Summonboard farming. For all of your characters you have about 150 characters with 10 summon boards. Those are easier to farm in my personal opinion, especially if there isn't a campaign going on where you get enhancement points for these, because if there was, then 4 times the points would be good. The problem is that there isn't right now, so I would lose my goddamn mind if I was to do these. Like, I would recommend it for divine summon boards. At the very least you just wait for an enhancement event. Usually those come around when the next divine summon board is gonna drop. So for example, Alexander went away last month, so it's every 2 months is usually a divine summon board, a new divine summon board. So every 2 months So the next month I think we should get the next summon board, so it would be much easier to farm these points next month. Depending on when you're watching this, just check the timeline of your event in the there's a site that I will link down below which will have the event timeline according to JP, the forecast according to JP, what the next year or so will look like in Opera Omnia, and you can see when the next Divine Summon board is scheduled to pop for you. So you can just plan on doing Divine Summon boards when the next one drops, so that you can have boosted characters and not lose your mind for that. But in essence, once you complete all of those, you will get enough materia to raise your summon to level 40. And that is basically it. That was quite literally all that I had to tell you about summon boards. The rest you can figure out by yourself. Abyss is a place where you can get resources, for example. So the Perfectum will have the chaos stages. This one has more guard armors, tickets, gems, stuff like that. This one has your ingots, your books, stuff like that. I believe you can get books from this one as well. So if you're lacking books for enhancement for your armor or for your weapons or for your armor, come here, and here chocobo panels, hunt. The rest of the World Evolutions is basically like this because I didn't complete all of the other side quests, and I'm not gonna do those because I don't care for them right now. I'm not gonna waste my SP on them, on all of these little quests over here. I really don't care for them. Lost chapters, do your lost chapters. You will eventually run into I believe I still needed a couple more characters for this one, so after Ramza I needed a couple more characters. If you find yourself blocked off during the story stages, it's probably because you haven't done your lost chapters. I recommend just doing the first mission and then getting the character for absolutely all of them, and then completing the rest of the lost chapters as they go. Remember to check for your points. These ones, do your Summonboard Farming, do your dailies, do your chocobo panels, and check out videos from creators when they talk about there's quite a lot. I personally don't talk about them. I don't know, maybe it would be useful if I started the video series talking about them, but there are quite a lot of content creators that talk about upcoming characters and how useful these characters are, what are the meta characters and stuff like that. So you can always check online and see which is the new meta character, or if a character that you like comes up. And quite frankly, I do recommend pulling for favorites and pulling from meta. If your favorite is not a meta, you have to compensate somehow. I'm just gonna be very frank with you. If your favorite is not meta, you have to compensate in order to bring him to fight. So you do need meta units. But you can probably afford to skip out on a few of them if you really hate them, for example. So yeah, that is basically all of the advice that I would have. I wish you the best of luck and thank you for watching.